Hello and welcome to the August 2021 edition of What It's Like to Live with the Classic Mini. This month I completed some basic maintenance of the Mini, so I greased all relevant parts of the steering and suspension components. I ensured that the car was lifted safely, making sure that the rear wheels were chocked off, using jack stands to support the front of the car, and ensuring that the wheels, when removed, were placed back under the car for additional safety. So the first grease point were the upper control arms. And here you can see, as I apply the grease, it comes out at the ends. The second grease point is the steering ball joint. Apply a liberal amount of grease. The grease I'm using here is just a high quality lithium grease. And the grease gun is just one that you can find quite easily either at your local big box store or from Amazon. Next is the bottom ball joint. Now the bottom ball joint grease nipple points to the back of the car and the top points to the front. It's important to note that these are grease nipples and not grease teats. If you grease regularly, you'll find you only need a few pumps before you can move on to your next nipple. So grease point 4 is the top ball joint. When you grease the respective parts of the car, it's just important to ensure that you see a little bit of grease come out at the end, and that should be sufficient. What I like to do is ensure that I clean off the grease nipple after I've applied the grease. This way it keeps it nice and clean and doesn't attract dirt. Obviously, because you're near the brakes, it's important to ensure that you clean everything afterwards. I use some brake clean on the disc, as you can see here, to ensure that there's no grease or leftover residue that could harm the braking ability of the car. You might notice that underneath the wheel arch looks a bit damp on the right there. That's really the rust protection I applied last year, still doing a great job. Once you've completed the greasing of the steering and suspension components on the left hand side of the car, it's a rinse and repeat on the right hand side. The last grease point is at the rear of the car for the swivel pins. Again, simply apply the grease gun to the grease nipple and apply a liberal amount until you can start to see the grease coming out of the ends. Here it helps to lie down so that you can see the grease coming out towards the inside of the car. Top tip with the push-on nozzle type fittings is don't pull, but rather wiggle up and down, left and right, and then the grease nozzle will come off quite easily. I had noticed that the car had developed a bit of a squeak coming from the brakes, so I decided to apply some grease again to resolve this issue. So to remove, first of all, you have to remove the brake pad retaining pins, and as you can see, I bent back the tab to make it as straight as possible before I removed them. I used a good set of needle nose pliers to help with the extraction process. Next is you remove the brake pads and apply the copper grease to the back of the pad, obviously not to the friction material. You see here I applied a liberal but thin amount. And then you reinsert back into the car. Remembering of course that the brake-in pad material should be facing towards the disc. Simple case of repeating on the other pad and reinstalling, again remembering that the brake pad surface is towards the disc. The copper grease I use is from Permatex and I sourced it from my local Canadian tyre. Once they're both back in, it's a simple case of flattening out the pins or inserting new ones. As you can see here, you see me just flattening them out using my trusty persuader. Then pushing the pins back through their retaining holes to ensure the pads are affixed accordingly. As you can see here, it can be a bit of trial and error, but the straighter you get the pins, the easier it will be to reinstall. Once the retaining pins are inserted, then using some pliers, bend up one end of the pin. This ensures that the pads are then locked in place. Of course, again, anything to do with the brakes, I like to ensure I apply a liberal amount of brake clean, make sure everything's clean and there's no grease anywhere. And I took the car for a spin afterwards and it solved my squeaky brake issue. If you ever have the car up, always a good idea to check for other things, as you can see I've done here. Then, job done. Simple case of repeating everything on the other side of the car, then the reverse process of lifting the car up, ensuring it's all done. Let's look at the numbers for August 2021. I actually didn't spend any money this month, using all components that I'd already purchased the car, such as copper grease and lithium grease. I did take the car out on a few journeys. Here you can see the Sykes readings. Nothing really to note here, although I still have my idle switch issue on one date that you can see there. And the car ran okay, but a little bit lumpy. All other times, she ran like a dream. Distance, a lot less than last month, but still very good MPGs. Out of curiosity, I checked what modern car it was comparable to, and here you can see the current running at 8 litres per 100 kilometres is comparable to a 2019 Mini. I think that's pretty impressive for an old car. So, getting out and about, did some tourist trips in the Mini. I woke up early, 5 AM, to go and see the CN Tower from Polson Pier, and I just loved the Toronto skyline. On the way back, a quick stop at the distillery district, always a good photo opportunity. On my way to my local LCBO, it's the Wilson TTC yard. Looked awesome, loved the trains in Toronto, being nice and silver, so took a photo of that too. So, I'll just leave you with some footage of me out and about in a car. Here you can see, if you look in the passenger footwell, was one of my many summer trips to the LCBO. I'm going through a Radler stage at the moment, so trying a bit of shandies. And until the September vlog, take care and bye bye.